So hey garden friends, what in the world am I doing? Well, I totally muffed up my video, so now I have to start over. So to get this right, so you see all the steps. All right, today in this video, I am going to show you my favorite way of rooting rose cuttings. I have a rose here I'm going to take cuttings from, but I'm also going to share with you taking cuttings of salvias. The tip cuttings are the best, and we'll just pot some up for them to root. So yes, I have an older rose cutting video that's very, very popular. It works well, but this method actually works better, and I wanted to share this with people because it takes some of the errors that we can make out of the process. And yeah, I found this to be wonderful. So let's get rolling on rose cuttings, rooting them, and taking some salvia cuttings for the garden. Yeah, why salvia cuttings? Just jump to that. These are, this is a Salvia greggii. It's also called autumn sage. Now, in my videos, I have shown you the different colors I have gotten because this plant blooms nonstop for me all summer long without any maintenance. I don't have to deadhead. I don't have to do anything. You can to make it even better, but you don't have to for a beautiful plant. And I am all about low maintenance now. And this is one plant that, like I said, comes in several colors that, yeah, I want more of. And this is the easy way to get more. Also, I have a video from last year about cutting back Salvia nemorosa, which is meadow sage. Yeah. And that's a different type of salvia. Do you know there's like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 varieties, I can't remember the exact number, of salvias. So there is a wide range to take you through the season or fit any garden, and the color schemes too. Here's another one that I found, and I loved this color of blue. Now there's a stem over here, right here, perfect for taking a cutting. And I want more of this color throughout my garden. So when you mass plant, you get even better from your garden. You get an easy plant that doesn't need maintenance. Everything's great. So let's start with our supplies for the rose cuttings. This technique would work for the salvia cuttings too, but this is my new method. I shouldn't say my new method, but a method I learned about that has worked very well for me, and this is the one is my go-to for rose cuttings normally. So I have a terracotta pot. Now this is one from Italy. I have to warn you against some terracotta on the market now. They don't weep water well. It's not true terracotta. It's almost like a cement that's been painted terracotta colors. I don't know if that's for cost savings or what, but the ones that I have found from Italy that say it on it are true terracotta. So if you can't find it, try out, what I did ahead of time to make sure that this container here, this terracotta pot, would leach water. It's very important for this method. I filled it with water, set it over here, and then let it sit for a day or two, and it did weep water. So that is a necessary thing. This one actually does not have a hole. And when I put it in here, which is what I'm going to do, there's at least an inch or more around the rim for the cuttings to go into. So first, I have put a coffee filter in the bottom of the terracotta pot so the soil does not run through the hole, nor will it clog up the hole. And so you could also I've used these mesh seed starting bags. I've also you could use a little terracotta shard that will cover the hole but have a little bit of a gap. All of those work. This is just what I have for now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this pot, I want to be almost level with the rim of this pot when we're done. So I'm kind of guesstimating, I'm looking down in there to see how much soil I need to put in to have this pot be at that height in here. Now for the soil, this is You can use potting soil. I use the compost in bulk that I get from a local organic turkey farm. I mixed a bunch of perlite in it. I would say 1 part compost, 1 part perlite, 1 part horticultural sand. This is not play sand. Play sand's too fine. This is grittier, a bigger piece of sand, so to speak. You could also use grit if you can find it. Grit is almost like pea gravel, except a little bit smaller. So those all fit. So that is, I would say, I'm guesstimating, sorry about that, what the mixture rate is. I just want it to be very well draining. You can use straight coarse sand if you want. I have a friend who does that, does well. I just like using this mixture. Now what the perlite does is it not only improves drainage, but it also holds oxygen. Oxygen is very important. That makes sure that the roots or things that are rooting do not suffocate from too much water in the container or in the soil. Okay, I got more to put in there to have it bring it up. So I'll put in a scoop, measure. Almost there. A little bit more in the center. Perfect. It's not exact, but it's close enough. And I'm making sure I have about the same size gap all the way around. Now, I have a pot bottom here. This is a terracotta pot bottom. Anything to cover this pot while you finish filling in the soil will work. So I'm going to finish filling in around the edges. I want the soil to be maybe 1/2 inch below the rims of the 2 pots. Like I said, yesterday I did this and I was out here, it was in the afternoon, and it got so hot in here, my camera shut off from the heat, and then it corrupted the entire file. So the whole video done, and I couldn't use it. It just wasn't there anymore. So I had to come out here this morning. I have a big day ahead of me. Now, if you've been here long, or around lately, you'll know that I nearly became a widow this weekend. And that's not being overly dramatic. That's what the doctors told me. But my husband had a health crisis. He was feeling breathless. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take him to the hospital, to the ER. Now, he's had these little spells a little bit through the last 6 weeks, where just for 30 seconds, whatever, he'd feel like any little exertion and he'd become breathless. So he was thinking, I'm out of shape. I got to start exercising, right? Anyways, Sunday morning it became critical, where all of a sudden he could not breathe. And so loaded him in the car, headed to the ER. 1 mile from us is the fire station where the paramedics are. And I thought, you know, he's really gasping so much, I'm pulling in here and let them check him out. And he was agreeable to that. Not that he had any choice, because I was going to do it anyways. But yes, they were able to help him, got him in the ambulance. I followed the ambulance in my car over to the hospital. And come to find out, his lungs were full of blood clots, and it was cutting off his oxygen to the rest of his body. So yeah, they got him on blood thinners. They got it all. He was in the hospital for a few days. And yeah, now he's on the mend. It did damage his heart a little bit, but they said it is healable. It can reverse itself if he pays attention. So all of this to tell everybody, just really listen to your body. If something's going on that you're not quite, you're like, what is going on? Get it checked out. Now, I will say my husband did. He had gone to his doctor 2 weeks ago, had gotten set up for all kinds of tests to find out what was going on. And this just happened to, go get much worse really quick, and ended up in the hospital. But the doctors, as he was checking out, told me that I was this close to being a widow. If we hadn't gotten him in immediately, it could have been really bad. So, again, I'm saying all of this to just remind people, listen to your body and really be cautious, especially at our age. I'm 63, he just turned 66, and you really need to pay attention. So anyways, I'm behind on everything on my garden channel here, but that's okay. In my garden, I just did a garden walk showing you how far behind I am. And that's all right, because things happen. Life just gets crazy sometimes, and that's okay. The garden will wait for you and still be beautiful. So, okay, so I've gotten this filled up this far. Now, this is pretty dry soil, and that's okay. It makes it easier to get in here for me. So now we're going to take cuttings from the rose. I'll share with you how I do that. Let me see up here. Is this too high? No, it's already bloomed. Here's a dead bloom up here on these canes. So those are perfect ones to take from. You do not have to wait till it's bloomed. I take cuttings all the time. I take them right through the summer, and I've had success. Supposedly, you have better success if you take the cuttings right after the roses have bloomed on that cane. There's still roses blooming on here, but the one that's done blooming, supposed to be easier to get it to root. I don't know how accurate that is. Because you know what? When I went to a Rose Society meeting and they were having a rose cutting sale, it was in February. So the roses are still dormant, but some of them, they'll still be pliable. Like this one, well, this one's really hard, but that's a good one to take a cutting from. Sometimes even a little bit more pliable. See, this one's a little bit more pliable. You'll feel it. But anyways, the more pliable ones supposedly root faster, but they also are more susceptible to bacteria and things, fungus, causing them to rot before you get them to root. And the whole point is to beat the rot, get them to root before they rot. And that is why I use a rooting hormone, and that accelerates rooting. I'm going to tell you right now, there's so many myths out there that honey is a rooting hormone, that what other things have I been told? I can't remember all of them. No, those do not, or aloe vera, the gel. Those do not accelerate rooting. They can act as an antibacterial that helps prevent bacteria from attacking your cuttings, but it does not accelerate the rooting. Only a rooting hormone can do that. Now, some people can soak willow bark or make a solution from that. That has the ingredient that is in the rooting hormone, but I don't have any willow. So I use a commercial rooting hormone, and it does a beautiful job. I'm going to go get mine and get the rest of my stuff here, because I think I don't have my cutters right now. And then we'll get to taking the cuttings, and I'll show you how I stick them. Okay, I have the pot of soil, terracotta, weeps, terracotta pot, weeps. This one does not have a hole in the bottom. I can't remember exactly where I got this one. I get the smaller ones at Home Depot, so you may be able to find it. If not, in the past, I've used this one that has the hole, but I found these little rubber like corks or plugs on Amazon in different sizes, so they fit the different size potholes, and use that, and this worked perfectly. So if I want to set up another one, I have another pot for the inner pot. So I've got my pruners here, and I'm going to do something. Excuse me. I'm just getting over being sick. So anyways, my pruners. Now I have in here some rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to spray my pruners with it. And then I'm going to wipe them off. I don't use bleach. Bleach will damage your pruners after a while, or so I've read. Now, I never used to do this. You hear about sanitizing your pruners. And then, because I thought it was hogwash, really did. And then I got some dahlias that got crown gall. Pulled them out, threw them away, did all of the above. And then all of a sudden, some of my roses showed up with it. And I know I'd had the roses for years and never had any sign of it. And come to find out, you can actually transfer the bacteria or whatever it is that caused crown gall by pruning, cutting back your dahlias that have it, and then going and pruning your roses. So I've had to toss like 3 roses that had crown gall after that. So I can only imagine. It also bugs. They say pests can spread it, but your pruners can. So now I'm extra cautious and I make sure I wash down, rub down with alcohol, rubbing alcohol, my pruners. All right, so here's our rose. I think you're in the camera here. And here's a cane that has bloomed and is done. Now, usually they'll say that they want it to be a pencil thickness. It doesn't have to be. So, that's just one of those rules or recommendations that you can ignore. And so then I'm going to remove all the leaves, not all of the leaves, most of the leaves, because it really doesn't need the leaves to root. So I'm going to leave this one little leaf node on here. And then I have my Hormex 8 rooting hormone. Now, I have a liquid that you can make different strengths, but a lot of them on the market are like a 3% or 1, and this is 8. It's much stronger, and a lot of people will have you like smash the end of the rose, and you can do that. It's supposed to help give more surface or whatever for the hormone to adhere to or create. Now I've noticed in the past that where the leaf nodes are, it seems to root from there faster than right from the end, but that will be under the soil. Now I also have like scraped the ends like that, just a little bit, and then dipped them in their hormone. So these 2 leaf nodes will be under the soil. Probably can't see them very well, but they'll be under the soil, and I will make sure they get a little bit of the hormone. Now, normally I would not dip into the container. This container is getting older. They will start to fade as far as potency. So I'm going to go ahead and use it up and then toss it. I have a liquid concentrate that I can mix, and it's called Dip and Grow, different strengths. So after this one is done, I will go to that. I'll start using that, I should say. Okay. You notice I have the rooting hormone all the way up, and pushing this down in the soil is not going to remove enough of the rooting hormone to prevent it from doing its job. Now I push it down. I try not to hit the bottom of the pot, because what I have found with roses is the roots will start, if they're in here long enough, they'll cling to the porous clay. And then when you go to remove them, you have to get them off the clay without damaging them. And that can be tough. So if it's touching the bottom and it roots at the bottom, it'll adhere to that. So yeah, it's not all the way to the bottom. So there's one rose cutting I stuck. I do not have to clean my cutters between blooms. Now you can take a long cutting and then do it in increments, but this top part's pretty tiny. So I'm just going to cut that top part off and not use it. It's going to go in my compost bucket down here. And I'm just going to remove all the leaves from it. This one had some new growth, so it's putting out growth hormone. That had all the leaves. Just watch. This one will still root. I'll go ahead and scrape the ends. As I said, you don't have to. I've done this without scraping it. This one's a little more pliable than the last one. My chicken's in there doing their thing. All right, so it's going to go down in here. I have them about 3 inches apart. And I will put a marker in on this side if I do 2 different kinds of roses in here to differentiate. This one happens to be Sexy Rexy, and I have it in a pot now. I had it in the ground, but a gopher started to eat it, and I needed to re-root it because it ate all the roots off. And so what I do when I have a whole video on that, on how I save roses that have been eaten by gophers, where there's like not any roots left on it, I'll spray or coat the nub that has no roots with this, and then I'll pot it and it'll re-root. So yeah, that's what I did with, that's why this one's in this container. So that one has a bud on it. I'll cut this one over here. And you see it had a rose, but it's done. I'll put that down into the compost bucket. The little leaves. Okay. And then I'll scrape it. I've never done a test between scraped and non-scraped, or like smashing the end of the cutting. So there. Put that in there. So that is probably all I will take from this one, because these are all still blooming. And call it good. So we're going to put this aside. You know what? I could go ahead and put the salvia cuttings in here too. There's no other roses I really want to take cuttings from in my garden. So why not? So let's take cuttings from the salvia. Now this one, like I said, so these are all blooms. Now I can prune these back. These, I don't know how well they would root, because tip cuttings on salvia root easier. So this one right here, let me see, it's probably going to drip all over the place, but so this branch right here, you see it's not a bloom, it's just growth, green growth. Now this one is, this is the tip. So I'll cut this one down a ways, probably 4 inches down, and then we'll try to root it. So it's very pliable here, the top, and that's what you want instead of woody. So I'm going to cut it way down at the base. That gives me plenty of material, and then I'm going to take off these side shoots and one of the leaves. See that? Now I'll go get, because this is not a super hardwood cutting like the rose, I'm going to go get the other weaker rooting hormone. It's more than sufficient for the salvia cuttings. So this is by the same company. Oh, that's Hormex. No, this is Bonide rooting powder, but there's several kinds. Again, like I said, I have a liquid one I could mix up, and I could mix it to the desired potency I want. And yeah, I just had these on hand. So I'm going to make sure that the leaf node there is going to be under the soil. Now, this one is softer, so I can't just stick it down without using like a dauber or something. And I don't have one right here. So I will go ahead and use these scissors, and I'll just use it to help create the hole for it to go down into. Make sure it's going to go down beyond that leaf node, and you have the little top right there. So that's that one. Now that was the only one that only had the green growth on it, and not, no, here's another one over here. That one's over there. I'll try another one. This one's shorter, but still will work. It's just that they're really flimsy, delicate stems. So I have to be careful pushing it down into the soil, and that's why usually I have a dauber. Now if the soil was moist, it would stay open a hole easier than this, because when it's dry the soil caves in on itself. But we'll just give that a whirl. Okay, let me grab my glasses really quick so I can see, examine this and see how this works. You know what, I'm going to try some of these stems that have bloomed, just because I have not tried this one before, and you never know what's going to work. In the past, I have done cuttings of different salvias, and the tips root much faster and easier. So, okay, here's one that has just bloomed. It's pretty stiff. It may root. So if that's the only option you have, then it would be good to know that it's going to root. So, okay, got that one in there. And the more you take, the more chance you have of having success. So let's see. Yeah, here's another one I think I'll try. So it's a good stem, still pretty pliable. Now, somebody will ask, how long does it take to root? You know what? All things take different time frames. With roses, it seems like different varieties take different lengths of time to root. Depends on the weather, the temperature, the conditions. There's so many variables. Some say as little as 4 weeks. Others say, 6 to 8 weeks. I've had some that didn't root for months. And but they stayed alive and they stayed disease-free, and I just let them go, and then finally they did root. I know the cutting that I took from my father-in-law's property, that it is 15 feet tall, that rose, and it just blooms gorgeous all summer long with no water and no care, and it's a very hot area. And so I thought, I've got to get a cutting off of that, and I did. That thing took forever to root. Finally did, and I have the rose growing. Out of several cuttings, I only got one to root. So you never know. You just don't know. That thing's been there 50-something years, if not more. So who knows what kind it is. All right, so that's that salvia. So here is, now this salvia, I don't know if I mentioned it. I'm going to mention it. This one is called Patio Deep Blue Salvia patens, Patens. Has these gorgeous tubular flowers. And this one is, it's got the name on the side. This one is called Salvia Flamenco Rose. And, I picked it up. It was on the sale rack of Lowe's. And I knew I wanted it because this type is the type, looks like a piece dyed in there, that it just blooms all summer long, very drought tolerant, and all of that. So let's see, we got a couple of things in here going. I'm just pruning up the dead on it and stuff. So sometimes when you buy them on the bargain rack, this I bought last fall on the bargain rack, they look pretty shoddy, but if you know what you're doing and how they will revive if you take care of them, then they're worth the money. If they look obviously dead with, if it's an annual, probably not worth it. But anyways, okay, so there's those salvias. I think got room for a couple more. I can even put some between the rose canes. But the salvia will root faster than the roses, so you've got that. And then, digging them out. I have a small trowel that I use. All right, so this is new growth. It looks like it has buds on it, but it may work anyways. Usually you want to get it before it has flower buds. I don't know why. That's just what I've read. So, but I will take this one over here, and it's about a 4-inch piece. I will strip off the lower leaves. The leaves will make it transpire, meaning lose moisture. And, they're also a place for fungus to start. So I'm just going to leave the tip. Now, I have started many of these from cuttings, and I may not need all of this piece. So let me see, I'll get a dauber, or something that'll work better as a dauber. We got a Sharpie marker. I could, if this is not going to work well, I could get this soil moist, and then when I did poke a hole, it would stay open. So if I can't, that seems to have gone in. I would like it to go further, so I may revisit that one. Many of the salvias, you really don't need the ridding hormone. So, okay, here's another piece over here. Another piece. This one's a little firmer, so I may have an easier time getting it in there. I would like to get it closer to the top because this is where it's really soft, and that's where it seems to really root on these salvias better. And see, it starts woody and then it's green and pliable. But let's see. Now there's a distinctive difference between the two salvias, so I really don't have to mark them, but I probably will anyways because I have a tendency to forget. Like this one, I think, which one did I do? And this one's the rose-colored one. I have deep purple. I have a violet purple one. I have a red one, like a carmine red. Yeah, I think I want to do that lower. So, anyways, before we go any further, I can take more of this one, and I probably will. Probably put them in small pots, like one of these pots. But what do I do next? I fill this with water, the center. And I'll go get my water jug and do that. I should have had it in here. So yeah, went and got the water. And I just fill this inner pot with the water. Now, because this soil was so dry when I put it in here, I am going to moisten this outer ring of soil. I just want to get a catch basin for it and just give it a minute. So yeah, I have a tray. I'm going to put it under here. Probably should have did this before I filled that middle part with water. Okay, so I'm going to moisten the outer rim. Now, some people say, oh, you just washed off all the rooting hormone. No, there's enough on there that it will do its job, and it doesn't wash away as easily as you think. So that is not a problem. Now, I'm going to do this to where it pours out the bottom, and then I'll leave it in the water for a day. And that makes sure this soil here is very moist. Now none is coming through yet, but that coffee filter is holding it in a little while longer, and then it will go through. Plus, this was very dry soil, so it takes a bit for it to become moistened. So let's talk about why this works so well. So the terracotta here, this breathes. So even though it does lose moisture more quickly than plastic or some other sealed surface, you want the oxygen to be able to get in there, and you want this to breathe. The soil being very gritty, very loose draining, perlite holds onto oxygen. All of that is good for rooting. This center pot full of water, this holds water, and terracotta, it will leach, kind of like an Oya pot, into the soil around. And at a very low rate. As the soil dries, that's when that moisture exudes into it. So you're not worrying about when to water the container. This does it. You don't have to cover this with a plastic lid for humidity. This creates enough humidity that you don't have to cover it. If you want to, go ahead. But covering it, that does encourage more fungus easier, or the bacteria to grow, etc. from that humidity. So this is enough humidity that you don't need to cover it. You get the breeze, you get the airflow, therefore less fungal problems. The consistent moisture without too much moisture encourages the rooting and keeps the soil at the optimum moisture. If at ever you're doubting that it has enough moisture, you're thinking, wow, that top looks really dry of the soil, get a moisture meter. Stick it down there to where the roots are down here, or where the stems are down here. And can you even see where I pointed? Anyways, down further. And it will tell you whether it's moist or dry. If this is full and this is getting too dry, to your opinion, you want it just moist, you don't want it wet. Then you can water a little bit. If it maybe is drying out too fast, you think. But as long as you keep this water container filled, it should do the job. And as I said, I've had this work for me very well. Now I can keep this in here in the greenhouse. It does get very hot. So I will probably put it out beside my studio cottage where it's shady, but it gets plenty of sunlight, and it should go ahead and root. Again, the salvias will root faster than the roses. I do not know how long the roses will take to root. I've not done this variety before, so that's just how it goes with roses. Now, if you want to check for rooting with the roses, you can tug on the canes here, the stems, little cuttings, and if they give you a lot of resistance, then you know it's rooting. If it's very loose, then it's not. So just leave them in there. And as long as they haven't turned black or brown or look all fungusy, they're fine. They're good to go. You will have failures. I usually have about an 80% success rate, meaning I lose 20%. So that's why I say take as many cuttings as you can. The more you have, the more success you will at least get 1 or 2 to root. And be careful. Once you start rooting cuttings, it becomes addictive because you want to root everything. So that, my friends, is my latest way that I have found super easy, super successful for rooting roses. And also, I've not tried rooting the salvias this way, but normally I would have put them, and I'm going to do some more. In this, I would fill the pot with the soil. I would go ahead and moisten this after this. I have this in here, or I would leave it lower, the soil lower, and then stick the rootings around the edge and then pour more soil in there because they're so soft that they don't get down in there very far easily. So that is another way of doing that, and I probably will continue on and do that once I turn this off. But you already seen how I do it, and you know how to do it, so I don't need to show you that all along the way. As I said, I haven't done salvias with this kind of pot before, with this method, but if it works for the roses, there's no reason why it should not work for the salvias. Okay, I thought I would add an addendum here. After looking at it, the soil's gotten moister. I wanted these cuttings lower in the soil. So all I did was pull it out. It's not the end of the world. I could put more rooting hormone on them, but you know what? They root very easily, so I'm not too worried about it. So I went ahead and made the hole deeper. Now that the soil's moist, the hole stays open, and I'm able to sink that salvia down up to almost the tip. Now, like I said, the salvias do better for me from tip cuttings. So that's the very tip that's very pliable. So there we go. I'm going to do a close-up of this to add to the video, and you can see where everything's at. Now I could have put that other one over here. Anyways, so there you go. So that is that. I hope to see you in my next video. I'm still going to do the watering video information, and then also the roses, the different types of roses that can be grown in your garden. So those are coming. I've also got to do a rose alley tour. The roses are really getting going right now, and I've got so much on my plate. Let's hope everything runs smoothly now. All right, I'll see you in my next video, and thanks for coming along. I do appreciate it.